Yep.
Going live. Well, it says that we're live. Can
Awesome.
you see that on your end? Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
We seem to be live and we have two concurrent viewers, and I assume that's you and me.
Ooh, yes.
So, welcome to the first of hopefully a series of K6 office hours. We're still trying. Oh, so Samuel is on. Hi, Samuel. Welcome.
How do you know that's Samuel?
Because I've seen his nickname before, Griach. So this will be a reoccurring thing where we try to open up the K6 virtual offices and answer some of your questions, interact a bit, maybe do some demos or whatever, and yeah, just talk about performance and testing in general. And my name is Simon or Simme. Hi Rakesh, welcome. And I'm a developer advocate at K6, and I'm joined by.
Nicole van der Hoeven. I live in the Netherlands right now, and I'm also a developer advocate for K6. So, this is the first time that we're doing this. So, bear with us if the quality isn't quite there. We're also just trying to figure this out. So, why are we doing this anyway? I guess we just wanted to provide a way for like the community to chat back to us because we do a lot of talking to people, like videos and presentations, but there's not as much of the other way around, right? So it's just kind of nice to see where people are at. Okay, we already have a question from Rakesh. Are you planning to provide some kind of integration for connecting to a database? Oh, and Mikhail Stoikov, yeah, says hi. Hi, Mikhail.
So for the first question, I actually have some kind of answer for that one. Uh, and yes, we are actually planning to provide some kind of integration for connecting to databases. However, we don't really know exactly when and how that will look yet, as it's still in the backlog, but definitely we'll try to uh, come up with some kind of solution to connect to databases as well. You're not the first person to ask that, and it feels like a natural evolution of the tool. So yeah, for sure.
I
And
think we
actually,
should
yeah, sorry.
go on. Sorry.
Actually, next week I will be joining the Prisma IO team on their live stream to talk a bit about how you can use K6 to test Prisma backed services as well. So make sure to tune that in if you want to know more about testing with focus on databases or data storage.
I was going to say maybe we could start with going through the latest release. So I don't know if have you had a chance to play around with it yet?
Yeah, not for much, but I've been involved in some of the discussions prior to the release. So, but I know that you've spent quite some time trying it out. So, feel free.
Yeah, so a few features. I think the real big headliner is the shared array. It's something that I don't think I don't really see that in other load testing tools. So the concept is that when you have a load test and you have a lot of users, so something where maybe you have a data file for users that are logging in. So username, password, or if you're filling out a form in your load testing script, maybe it's like it also has an address or whatever it is. But in a load test, you go through a lot of data very quickly. And so it's not uncommon to have hundreds or even thousands of lines of rows of data. And the problem with that is if you also are running a distributed load test and you need to find a way to copy that into every single load generator. But, when you're talking about that kind of large file, it's really inefficient to copy it to every single one. So I don't know if how you normally approach the Simme, but like for me, I have to split them up. Like I always, like if I have 100, if I have a, well, that's not, so let's say if there are 100 load generators, then I might have like 10 each or something. So this, it's still unwieldy because then you have so many CSV files that you need to manage, and you have to figure out which one, you have to make sure that they're unique and whatnot. So the shared array is this cool thing where instead of doing that, of copying it to every load generator, in your script you just use the shared array object, and what it does is it makes it so that you only upload one copy of your CSV file or your JSON file, and then on the fly K6 is going to take that row that you need and send it to the actual load generator that's going to use it. So that's just one of the ways that we're always trying to improve performance. I think sometimes people think that performance is just about speed, right? But it can actually also be about memory or CPU or resources.
Yeah, and if you think about it, with K6, you would it's not uncommon that people test with thousands of virtual users or thousands of concurrent runtimes. And in that case, if say that you have a 12 megabyte large CSV file and you were to load that 1,000 times, well, that quickly eats up a whole lot of memory. So it definitely makes sense to be able to load that once and then just share that array between different VUs. Yeah. One thing
It
to,
sure
sorry, go ahead, Nicole.
I was just gonna say it shortens the startup time for a load test too, so you're not, spending several minutes just waiting for the test to even start.
Mm. And one thing that is important to keep in mind regarding this shared array is that, I don't know, you probably mentioned it already, but is that it's read only, right? So you'll not be able to mutate any of the data that you put in it, but rather you'll read something into that memory at startup or in it, and then you'll be able to access that memory throughout the load test, but you won't be able to change the content of that memory.
And then the second big feature of this release, which by the way, I don't think I ever said the name, the which release it was. So it was version 0.30, is the handle summary. So I think that I actually think this has way more potential than even the shared array, because as you know, like in my week of testing, that was one of the things that I really harped on about was the results. And I guess I'm just used to like load testing tools printing it a certain format of results, but I really love that using the handle summary. So you just have to export a function, it just called handle summary, and you can pretty much change the results to whatever format you want. That's a lot of freedom.
Yeah, and that's one of the features that I've actually been really excited about myself, but haven't gotten around to try yet. But being able to, for instance, create JUnit outputs and have them appear in your CI as part of the test reports, that's really a huge improvement in my opinion. Because you already do that with unit tests, you already do that with integration tests or what have you. So you should definitely be able to do that with performance tests as well, especially given that the performance testing game as a whole is moving more towards DevOps and integrated testing and continuous testing as well. Then you definitely want to make sure that you can quickly see the results of your tests and also be able to share that with the stakeholders that might not be technical or work in development roles or things like that. So being able to generate good reports is definitely a huge step for us.
And even just I think for debugging, I think there's a lot, like maybe you could have a separate sort of template that you use for debugging and another one for actual reports, because I see a lot of things that I would add to the summary just when I'm starting to script or in the middle of scripting, not just when I'm actually doing a load test.
For sure.
Um, oh, so Samuel is saying that maybe we should also talk a little bit about what actually K6 is, which is a good point. You kind of get stuck in your own little bubble, right? They were like, oh yeah, K6 release 0.30. It's like, oh wait, maybe there are people who don't even know what K6 is. Do you want to
Yeah, sure.
explain?
So K6,
Since I'm the newbie here.
you can probably tell me what it is much better than I can tell anyone else. But
I
so
doubt that.
K6 is a performance testing and reliability engineering tool, basically. So what it does is that, oh, sorry, it is provided in two different flavors or editions, if you will. You have the K6 OSS, which Nicole and I work a lot with, but you also have the K6 Cloud, which is a fully managed, automatically scaling cloud service for doing the same things that you could do in K6 OSS, but with a lot less hassle or manual intervention. And K6, as I said, is a performance testing tool or a reliability engineering tool. And what that means is that it's able to produce a lot of load or a lot of requests, simulated requests, behaving just like a user would, and point those toward a server or a app or an API. So you would, for instance, be able to spin up a lot of what we call virtual users and have them emulate a real user in your application and just repeat that at scale against your target platform or target system under test. And by doing that, why would I want to do that, you might ask? But well,
I don't
by
know,
doing
Simme.
that,
Why would you want to do that?
yeah, to DDoS someone. No, jokes aside.
I knew it.
uh, this is a really great tool be able to uh, make sure that your system will withstand a large surge in traffic or turbulent circumstances in general without going down, or at least failing gracefully in case it goes down. So you'll be able to apply pressure as much as you like at your system under test and watch what happens once that traffic hits the server.
Were you already, did you try K6 before you joined the company K6?
Yeah, the first the first time I heard about K6 was at the Go Stockholm conference in 2017, I think, when Robin, our CEO, was there and presented the K6 for the Gophers in Stockholm. So that's the first time I heard about K6, and it seemed really interesting. But that was at least 2 years prior to me joining the company.
Yeah, I hadn't fully used K6 yet, but I already knew of it as a tool, and it was growing in popularity, and I didn't quite understand yet how it was really different from the other tools. So I was aware of what it did, and I actually probably was more aware of K6 Cloud than K6, because K6 Cloud is so slick. Like, I mean, so is the actual OSS tool, of course, but it's just K6 Cloud, there's something visual that can catch your attention. I love how it looks, and look, I love the color purple. No, that's not why. No, but my first impression of K6 was really pleasantly surprised. I mean, it's always a good thing to discover that the company that you're working for is selling a product that you really believe in. But that's certainly the case for both of us, I think.
Yeah,
Wouldn't,
for
yeah.
sure.
I was just gonna say, wouldn't it suck if you suddenly were like, no, this is my last day at K6.
I quit.
Okay. Back to the release. Oh
Yeah.
man, this is like I think this is our new one-on-one. Like forget the one-on-ones, we'll just live stream everything.
Yeah, exactly. And we're only
um
15 minutes in and it's already derailed, but
yeah. We're like only on the very first thing that we were
let's
going to
try to
talk about.
salvage this.
Okay. The other thing in the release that I wanted to mention was array buffer. So now we can use that to build binary bodies to pass along with HTTP requests. And one of our developers, Mihail, said that we had some issues around form data. I personally hadn't run across any of them, but it looks like array buffer, being able to use array buffer is now going to solve a lot of those too. Should we go through some community forum questions?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, it is a virtual public, Shika. I mean, Sim and I are going to talk anyway. Like, we might as well just put it live on the internet. You want to like share your screen or something? Or
Yeah, let's do that. 1 second. I'm just gonna
I'm
take it
afraid to
off.
do too much on my computer because because of this whole streaming thing.
Unfortunately, I'm not able to share my screen because that's disabled in this chat.
Oh, what? How do I let you? Oh, all participants. Here you go.
There we go.
Sorry about that. You know, you're kind of a dodgy kind of person, so you never know what you're going to share.
All right, let's see if this
Yes,
shows up.
I see it. I see things.
Awesome. One of the things we thought that might be interesting to do as part of this office hours is to actually go through some forum threads and try to see if we can help answering them or in any way elaborate on the topic that's being discussed.
I feel really dumb. There's a dark mode to the community forum.
Yeah, and this dark mode is actually 2 days old or something.
Okay. I feel less dumb.
We had a dark mode prior to that as well. That looked like, let's see if we can. That looked like this.
Samuel's so useful to have on the stream. He should just be here too.
For sure. So this was the old dark mode, and then yesterday or 2 days ago, I finally got around to create a dark mode that actually matches our company colors, or at least closer matches our company colors.
Okay.
So this is the new dark mode.
Wow, I can't believe you even those things wouldn't even occur to me. but it's awesome. All right. Sorry, getting derailed again.
Okay, so let's pick a forum thread or a topic. Anything that stands out to you as something interesting?
Shall we do it from... Okay, the first one on mine is the WCF SOAP API. I think that one hasn't had any replies on it. I sorted by ascending.
Yeah, let's see. Can we test WCF SOAP APIs using K6 where we are using PFX certificates? Thanks. Okay, so PFX is actually one of the certificates that I don't think we currently support in K6. Let me have.
So I actually did some research on it. I maybe you can jump in on the K6 front, or maybe Samuel knows. But as for the PFX certificate, it actually usually includes both the private keys and the public keys. So you probably don't want to actually upload that to K6. You shouldn't give that to anybody. What I did find is that there is a way, if you have a PFX certificate, you can extract just the public key information and it will result in, I mean, you can you have a few formats to choose from when you're exporting, but you could export it to a .cer or certificate, which I believe K6 would support.
Yeah, for sure. And you can also export it as a PEM file, which definitely K6
Right.
supports. Uh,
Yeah. So this actually led me into a rabbit hole of like the difference between different certificates, and apparently PEM is not a type of certificate. It's a type of encoding.
yeah.
It blew my mind. I'm like, what? I thought it was a certificate this entire time. But anyway, yes, if you have a PFX certificate, do not upload that one. You need to upload just the public key. Well, I mean, you could upload it, but you shouldn't really. Maybe we should like later leave a comment and say, hey, we answered your question in our office hours at this time code.
Yeah, I was thinking we could even post a reply or an answer in the thread, but we can do that
Okay.
post the stream for sure.
Yeah. All right.
And just to give a little bit of more background regarding this, WCF, that's a Microsoft project or tooling for actually sending XML payloads back and forth, called Windows Communication Foundation. And it's really popular in C# projects, for instance, because you're able to generate both the server and the client directly from within your project. So you for instance be able to just create your service or your server, export a WSDL file or a WSDL, and then you'll be able to import that into your other project and have the client created automatically for you. So yes, you can test WCF SOAP APIs, but you can't really do it in the same way as you would if you were to do it natively within Visual Studio, for instance. Instead, what you can do, because you'll have to likely send a XML payload to this. I think you can use JSON as well. I'm not worked that much with WCF, but for XML at least, you'd be able to create an XML payload yourself in K6 and then send that to that API and measure that. So for sure it's possible, but you'd have to convert the PFX certificate, as Nicole mentioned, to something that K6 actually supports, and which hopefully does not also include your private key, because that should never leave your computer.
Actually, if you're using Windows, I think that makes sense because I think PFX, that's actually PKCS 12, the kind of certificate it is. And I think that is usually for Windows servers. So if you already have Windows, maybe you could just use the Windows Management Console to import the PFX, and then you should be able to export just the public key. Or use OpenSSL. Maybe I'll actually put it in chat. I found so this is a good link for the PKCS 12 tool for converting it basically to another type of certificate. Look at that. Finished one question.
Awesome. Let's move to the next.
Yeah.
How to parse form data format to K6. Hello, I just want to ask about parsing form data format that contains real URL in body API. Can somebody help me? I tried something like this, and then there's a snippet, but it's just an invalid format, and the post method not doing well because of it. Then I got response 400 from the server. Okay, so this one might be a little hard to actually answer, right? Because
yeah. I'm just having a look at the snippet that this person posted, And the format seems a bit off to me. Like there's a part there where, where it says real URL, and then there's backslash rn, and then a link. Like that seems like it's off. It's not a value of any parameter. So I think there might actually be a format issue there.
Yeah.
So I guess how would we troubleshoot this? I think I would use something like Postman to send it. So it's usually nice to have another tool that uses so that you can put in the what you think the format is, and if it also doesn't work in that one, then there's something wrong with how you've put it together. I think that HTTP link should be where real URL is in the snippet, or there should be like another parameter maybe for the URL.
Let's see.
It just
Because
seems a little off.
what will happen here, right? Or what they're trying to do is to send form data using the body of the request in a post method. Because form data, usually when you do that, you post it as some kind of or you add that as the body, as opposed to the other version where you use query parameters to send data to the server. So instead of appending it to the URL, you'll include it in the body, and that's basically what this person tries to do. But since that data spans multiple lines and needs to be formatted in a certain way, it's actually quite important exactly how that format is done. And in this case, it doesn't even seem that the escaping is totally correct, unfortunately.
Good point. Yeah.
So I think, for instance, yeah, Mihal says you can use HTTP bin, and that's really good as well. So if we, for instance, were to send this to a server as is, it would not really be readable, because one, it only has one property, which is name, as you said, which is now set to real URL, and it does not contain any key for the actual URL that is being passed. So what probably would be a little bit more along the lines of what I would expect in this case would be key value pairs for both the properties that are being sent, right? So in this case, they send this as the body in the request. Let's just go ahead and open somewhere where we can type. All right.
Bye, Samuel.
Bye, Samuel. Take care. Have a nice weekend. So in this case, what you would probably want to do, for starters, you'd like to be able to add multi-line strings to this request, right? Which we can see if we look at the /r/n that is appended or is included in this body. So to do that, we could use something in JavaScript called template strings. So for instance, we could say that the body is equal to backtick, backtick, and everything we place in between these backticks now will be automatically encoded the way we expect it to. So for instance, if we were to have new lines here like this, they would be included as well, and we don't have to do the rn carriage return new line escape or control characters that we are doing here. So in this case, they have a WebKit form boundary, which looks like it's supposed to be the head of this request. And then they have a delimiter at the end as well. like this, right? And in between this, they send a content disposition tag, which seems to be a header, which should probably not be in the actual form data, but rather outside in the headers. So let's just go ahead.
I do see the content disposition in the WebKit form boundaries, though.
Oh, you do?
Yeah. Not sure why it's there, but
Maybe
it is
we have.
typically included in there.
All right. Okay. So then it should probably be there. It looked a little off to me since it didn't follow the same format as the other properties and keys. It should probably even be then like this, right?
I'm not sure.
And then we would have the name as we had in the example as well, name real URL, for instance. And then we would probably have another property which we don't really know the name of, given that the question didn't tell anything else than this. But let's assume that that this one should actually be called URL, followed by the actual URL.
Mihail also had some suggestions in the chat. So he was saying that we could use the advanced multi-part request. So use the form data to act the class. Well, create a new object and then just append to form data. That way you don't have to actually format it yourself.
That's actually an even better suggestion. Okay, so yeah, that's actually in the request as well, or in the chat as well. So feel free to use that. In any case, it would probably be something more like this that would be the actual format of the request rather than what was in the question. But given that this is quite old by now and it lacks a lot of information, we'll just go ahead and post a link to the stream maybe, and if the person, in the unlikely event they still have an issue with this, hopefully we'll get some more information.
I think they probably would have figured it out by then. But yeah, I think it's just a format issue, not a real K6 issue.
Yeah.
Okay, next one. Look at us. 30 minutes in, we've done 2 questions.
And had me rambling for 10 of them. Awesome.
I mean,
go.
Look, if people watch our live stream, they're just gonna have to deal with the rambling because you and I are both pretty talkative people.
That's how we work.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay,
do you want to read this
module
one?
import. Sorry?
Do you want to read this one?
Sure. Why is okay. Hi guys. I don't know their voice. We are using K6 for load testing, but we stuck. Okay, this is distracting with the problem. If we import a module like JSON Web Token or JWK to PEM into the JS source file, then the test run will be killed by the running environment after about 15 minutes of trying. Even if this is the only thing that we put into the code. Our guess is the generated JS file is way too long and cannot be properly processed, although it didn't work with smaller split or chunk JS files, so we're not sure. As far as we know, it should have an impact only on performance, but not being killed. Do you have any idea what we should do? And then they actually link their template project. It looks like it's in GitHub. Try to use JSON Web Token in main.js.
Okay, so they're actually using the template that we've provided that utilizes Webpack to bundle up any dependencies you add and have them being a part of the test script, and even transpiling them to something that cases could actually understand. In a lot of cases, this works, but given that a lot of libraries also depend on, for instance, browser APIs or even Node.js packages or built-ins, this is not actually always the case. And I'm just trying to quickly scan through the code for any signs regarding why this might be the case. And this is actually a package that I know has been troublesome for people to actually be able to use. Because I think it utilizes Google's, or not Google's, but the JSON web signature package for Node.js. And if I'm not mistaken, then that one actually requires some Node.js binaries to be compiled before you'll be able to use it, which of course K6 does not have in its limited runtime. However, a lot of the algorithms used in the JSON Web Token project are actually available within K6 as well, so you could probably do it that way instead. See if I can find it.
Yeah, this is a little hard to answer like off the cuff here. I think, yeah, I think again, this is a little older, so probably it would be the sort of thing we need to go back and forth with this person about to
For
help
sure.
troubleshoot it.
But for anyone else that wants to do something with cryptos or where JOTs or anything similar is involved, I'd suggest that you have a look at the K6 crypto package for starters, because that's definitely known to work with K6, given that it's a built-in, rather than trying with external packages. It might require a little bit more manual labor to get it working, but at the same time, at least you know it will work if you use the built-ins. So I would definitely have a look at the K6 crypto package before I try with any third-party node modules.
Okay, next question.
Yeah.
Another certificate question.
Okay, so this one is actually archived, so let's skip that one.
Oh man. Of course it had to. Wait, stop. Sorry. Of course that has to happen, right? Like, who calls people these days? Anyway.
What do you even use to calls? I mean, your cell phone is for playing mobile games, right?
I know, right? Like, anyone who calls me does not know me.
Okay, so this question is actually from Pavel, a colleague of ours. And he asks, what is a training segment? I've noticed that some of my tests get a warning saying that not enough training data is available to run performance analysis. What is a training segment, and how do I structure my test run to get automatic performance analysis?
Ooh, hola, Leandro. Leandro's here. Senor Performo in the chat.
Awesome.
I think it was like a spam call.
Yeah,
my watch said potential fraud.
Maybe it was Leandro calling you because he knew you were live.
Oh. +31, it was Dutch.
All right, so the image is a little bit small.
Yeah. So where does it actually say training segment? Oh, there it is. Test duration is too short for training performance alert analysis beta. Okay. So I think what's going on here is we have these performance insights, which is one of the coolest things about K6. So what that is when you run a test, there are certain things that our algorithms check for. So like patterns that we can recognize. So we might say, at this point you started having an increased number of errors, check the logs or whatever. It'll tell you what's happening, what we think might be happening, things that could cause it, and how you can troubleshoot those. So what this is saying, this error is just saying that we can't display any of those because the test is too short. So we just basically need more data. And the way that you get around that is by increasing your duration or increasing the number of iterations depending on how your script is set up.
Yeah, because you can see from the chart to the bottom, in the bottom right, that you've actually, this test actually only completed 70 or 72 maybe iterations, and the actual minimum to be able to use the analysis is 100 completed iterations. So just bumping that up a bit, either by adding more VUs, maybe setting it to 10 instead of 6, or by increasing the duration, and you'd probably get a better result.
Yeah, it's only a 2-minute test as well, which is, yeah, it's not even really a load test. So I think performance insights are really for longer tests.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, with 70 or 72 requests, it should probably be considered more of a, what's the term you usually use? Shakeout test?
Shakeout, yeah. So I learned that the term shakeout test is like a testing only one. So it's like we have a secret
Ah,
language. Developers don't know what it means.
yeah. And me not being a tester or having a pure testing background, never heard the term until 1 week ago. More than
That's
10
awesome
years in the
though.
field, but I've never heard the term. So that's awesome.
Yeah.
Really glad to learn new things. So now I'm in on the secret language, right?
Oh, I shouldn't have told you.
Yeah.
I should have
So
told you means something else.
now you won't be able to have your secret meetings while I'm around.
I know. So what would you call it? Would you
Uh,
say like you're debugging, I guess, or
yeah, I would probably just, or rather, I wouldn't probably not do it that way. I would probably have written a unit test for it and have that confirm the one user, one iteration scenario,
yeah.
or maybe call it a regression test or a smoke test.
So usually when I at least say shakeout, what I mean is I already have a script and I've run it through like the standard debugging steps. So you run it, one iteration, one user, then one user, multiple iterations, then multiple users, multiple iterations. Once you've got that done, the shakeout test is like a scaled down version of a load test, and it checks also your script sometimes, but also things like test data. So sometimes you might run out, but you didn't run out when you were debugging because there were too few users or iterations. um,
Yeah, that makes sense. And I assume shakeout is a good term for it. Uh,
and
I
yeah.
assume the intention is that you shake it and see if something falls
Yeah.
out. Uh,
Or sometimes it's also the environment.
yeah,
Like sometimes your script is fine, but the environment didn't have the right config or whatever. Or the people who are supposed to be looking or supposed to be monitoring aren't monitoring it. That's what I call a shakeout. But and usually it's not like a load test, and it's not for very long even.
mm,
But
uh,
you developers have so many of this like lingo, secret lingo. And because K6 is pretty much all developers, actually, I think, almost all, sometimes I'm like, what do they mean? What are these like acronyms and stuff? It's like, Google.
yeah. I actually think that we only have two persons in the company that don't have an engineering background. And it's our CFO and it's our designer. Other than that, I think the whole company is just engineers in different roles.
That's pretty awesome, because I think, we all use what we're trying to build.
Yeah, exactly. And we all have hands-on experience, even if some of us or some people in the organization work in non-technical roles now. They have a technical background, so the conversation is always focused on how to improve the lives of the developers and testers using our tools, rather than some arbitrary notion of a product, which I think
Yeah.
is really good for sure.
So far, I think the main difference is in like attitude. I think developers are always like, well, you can build it yourself. And I don't think like that. So I'm always like, yeah, but it should already be built.
Yeah.
It should just be there. I shouldn't have to do it. But I'm learning. I'm learning from you all.
It makes me think of a image I saw a while ago that I really enjoy. Let's see.
Is it a meme?
Yep.
I knew it.
It works on my
Docker.
machine. Then we'll ship your machine. And that is how Docker was born.
Yeah, pretty much.
So
Like a
while you
machine cloning thing.
yeah, so while you can set it up yourself or can get it working yourself, as you say, you shouldn't really be able to, and that's the whole point of building products at all, right? That you want to produce something that someone else can replicate without having to go through the effort of inventing it themselves. So I
Yeah.
definitely agree with you on that.
And I also think that, like, as a load tester, I think it's rare for load testers to just use one load testing tool. It's not like we have many projects, but they all coincidentally use the same tool, right? So I think that testers have limited time to spend on one tool, whereas as a developer, you normally would be encouraged to like develop in-depth knowledge about something, whereas I think, at least for a load tester, it's more about the breadth. Like, you should be able to go in, pick up whatever tool that they're using, pick up the technologies that they're using, and figure it out, but you don't usually stay for a very long time to help them build it. So I guess that's a different mentality too. Like, I used to, when I was consulting, I used to have projects where it was one day. Can you imagine? You go in, you meet the people, and on the same day, they expect like some sort of informal test strategy, actually writing the test scripts, executing it, report, end of the day, done. And it's
Yeah.
like, if I have to build anything in that kind of a project, forget it. I'm going to another tool.
Yeah, I think the only sector or type of tech consultancy, except for test done, where that is actually feasible, that's probably if you work with something like a huge ERP system. Maybe you know one component of that ERP system. You know how to uh, configure the order module properly or something like
Mhm.
that. Then you could go in for a day and do that and then just be off. But then you're also more of a business consultant than
Mm.
an actual developer, even if you were to write code to do that. So I totally agree with you. And from all my years in consulting, I've almost never seen a project where you would go as a consultant and be for less than 100 hours, because that would probably be the time it would take to just set up your dev environment properly to work with
Yeah.
them, whatever they're doing.
Yeah, to be fair, like, I think that that's not ideal. I think the type of service that you can give in one day is very limited. Like, yeah, I can run a load test. Will I actually find a bottleneck and be able to, test things out? Or I can just kind of say, in this general area, look there. for your needle in the haystack. It's not really, I don't really like it too much because I also don't really understand the application or talk to people at all.
Mm. Yeah.
How did we get here?
I actually did a type of assignment that was pretty similar to that a couple of times prior to joining K6, which I really think worked out well, where I went to a company for a day and they told me all about their product and maybe whatever the problem they were having, and tried to like onboard me in a room full of engineers for one day. And then with stop, and I'd go back to my hotel or at home or depending on where it was, and just trying to analyze their situation and give an outsider's perspective on whatever they were facing or what they were struggling with. And then the next day I would come back to them. So it was for 2 days rather than one day, and we would discuss whatever my observations were and how I think they could improve. And not saying that I'm an expert or that I provided any right answers, but at least they got an outsider's perspective, and a lot of time that helped to get them unstuck in whatever they were facing and being able to progress forward. So that was a concept that really worked for me, and I think for the customers that I actually visited as well. But it's really, really hard to make a difference as a developer in such a short time.
Maybe you should stop sharing. No, sorry, don't mean your screen. I mean, since because I can't see you.
You can see. Ah, okay. You
No,
mean,
no, it's just
yeah.
the way that my screen is set up. That's all.
There we go.
That sounds rude. I'm sorry. I didn't mean it that way. No,
I was like, oh, so what's on my screen now? What happened?
why?
Did I have
What are
the
in the other tabs?
did I have the JMeter page up?
Well, that's okay. I mean, I already like made a bunch of videos on JMeter, so, and I got away with it too. No, yeah, I think that's really surprising. I didn't know that that kind of thing existed for developers as well. Yeah, it's a bit frustrating, right? Because you feel like they want a very specific thing, and you can't really. It doesn't really. It's not exciting work. You're not. It's just like the tedious parts of the job,
Yeah.
like yeah, I read a load test, so that the last one that actually did that, a 1 day kind of engagement, it became that, I think the idea was they wanted me to write the script. It was in JMeter actually, and they wanted to run it on their own. But I think what people don't understand is that that's like the easy part of load testing, when you already know what to test and how to test it. I think the hard part comes before it and after it. Before it, you're trying to get people to talk. Sometimes it's different teams and nobody really knows the end-to-end flow. And then after it, it's figuring out what the results mean, right? So I think the value is in the before and after. It's not actually in the test script writing phase. Would you agree?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, uh, I spend a lot of time working on chaos engineering things, right? And in that with that, preparation and analysis becomes really important as well. And I think it's the same as you're saying, or I completely agree with you that you, for instance, want to map out your dependencies. You want to understand what will happen to your system once you load it with 100,000 concurrent requests. I mean, uh, these things tend to have consequences in some form, at least if you're not prepared. And then just writing the test script, increasing the load until you're almost uh, ashamed, and then just running the test. That's probably not the best way to do it. I mean, you'll need to talk to the stakeholders, make sure that everyone
Mhm.
is informed that you will be running the test, understanding what impact the test will have, what precautions they've taken previously. and maybe even something as simple as setting up a good visualization of the results in whatever monitoring software or analysis software you have, and making sure that it's understandable by everyone on the team, and that they can take proper action based on what's being displayed or visualized. I mean, those things are the hard parts. I mean, K6 is built to be simple. You'll be up and running with K6 in probably 5 minutes and doing something meaningful, but you need to do what to do. You need to know what to do and why you want to do it, and what you expect to
Yeah.
gain from it.
I think it's also why I love K6, the OSS, but I think K6 Cloud really provides a lot of value. And, it's the same for other products as well. I just feel like the actual load generation is the beginning of it. Because like as load testers, we're not like assassins, like you go in there, snipe, and then leave. I mean, if you do, then you're not really doing a great job, because you should stay and try to work out, the ramifications of what you've just discovered. And I also feel like load testers end up being the voice saying, no, we should really look at this. We should do something about this, because in some companies or some cultures, they kind of like, okay, load testing is done. Right, let's release to production. It's like, no, 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 wait. It wasn't just about running the test and
Mhm.
not having something catastrophic happen, right? It's like we need to look at the bottlenecks that were exposed by this, because even if it didn't completely fall over, it might in production, given a slightly different workload model or whatever.
Mm.
So I think you really need time to stay and work stuff out. There's a lot of back and forth too. It's not something you can just do on your own.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, if you're only looking to take a checkbox, then sure, I can just write a bash script that echoes everything on fine, continue to production, and you can just run that whenever you want to do a performance test. But that won't mean anything. You need to actually understand what you're testing and how to analyze it, and even what you should do to resolve the issues you expose.
Or I love those load testing scripts that don't even have verifications. And so when you run it, it all passes because you didn't set anything that might fail. what
So
when it when you do that and you don't have any assertions or thresholds or anything, what you're checking, like what is successful, is that the test was executed.
yeah.
That's it. Doesn't mean your application is good to go.
Yeah, I actually worked with a company many years ago that I would probably say that their concurrency limit was around 10 users or something like that. And after that, it would be noticeable that for the user that the system were under a lot of load. Uh, or rather, that it was under a lot of load for that system, because 10 users is not a lot of load, right? You'd expect
Mm,
any website to be able to handle that. And in that case, it's really hard, especially if the business is actually working, right? Because how do you convince someone that you need to do proper performance testing or load testing and work out the kinks and the bottlenecks if you're making a positive result, and you've been doing that for a long time, but your server obviously is not able to handle any more users. Do you have
yeah.
any experience with similar situations and what to do to?
Yeah, sadly, yeah, it's still not uncommon to to have a company say that they want to be able to support thousands of users, and then oh, this is a good use case for a shakeout, because a lot of people, like, they want to maximize, I don't know, I guess minimize your time or something, and they just jump straight to the full peak load test. But sometimes the sad truth is that your application can support way less. And it's kind of like, in chaos engineering, there's this concept of minimizing the blast radius, It's like if it's so huge and you bring the entire application down and all the servers involved, that's not useful actually, because you don't know where to look, right?
Mm.
So it's more useful to start at the lower end and then just work your way up, and then at least, servers will stay up and you can still look at logs to see what's going on.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Oh, that's a good point, actually. Leandro says that the focus on number of users is not the best. I totally agree. And I think virtual users is an ambiguous way of measuring throughput or load in general. I think that it becomes like a shorthand, like if you're running the same sort of tests, I guess it's just easier for people to visualize, like, oh, yesterday we tried 500 users and then today we did 1,000. And most people understand it when it's in terms of users, whereas it might not mean so much when it's in terms of requests per second or transactions per second or any of those other things. But that only works if you already had a baseline and you're not changing anything else and everyone's aware of what's in there, right? But yeah, totally agree. It's not a great measure for it.
Yeah.
I love that comment by Leandro. So I'll read it. He says, users in the system are like people in a car. How many people can I fit? Are they midgets or sumo wrestlers? Oh, I think we're supposed to say like little people or something. I don't know.
I don't know either.
Anyway,
But
yeah, that's
shame on
totally
us for not
right.
knowing.
I think it's little person.
Yeah.
Um, although
Uh,
my husband calls me a midget because, I'm like 5'2" and he's 6 feet. But anyway,
but I
yeah,
think the same problem is there for instance, RPS as well. I mean,
true.
uh, say that you measure 10K RPS, then it's a huge difference between being able to log into a page, upload a 2 MB image, and then log out by Senor
Leandro.
Performo Leandro. Uh, it's a huge difference to that versus being able to load the front page 100,000 times per second. I mean,
Yeah.
you could do different actions in the system. So in both cases, at least I think it's hard to compare or to say whether a certain RPS or a certain VU count is good or bad. It's only good and or bad in comparison to the baseline that you measured
Yeah.
previously.
I think that the difficulty is when people try to use those measures to compare one load test in one company to another load test of another company. Because
Mhm.
it's like, or even between teams, if you're not testing the same thing and your baseline is different, there's so many things that could affect a difference in your results. It could be the number of virtual users, the requests per second, what those requests are, like you were saying, whether is it a get or a post? Does it require processing in the back end? Even
Mhm.
things like think time or pacing, the sleeps in your script, that's all going to be different. You know what? This is so like us. Like once we get down to the live streaming, like we could just keep going. But
Yeah.
that's an hour.
Yeah, in respect of everyone's time, and since a lot of you probably have either something else to do that's funnier than talk about performance tests during your weekends, or
What?
might want to grab your first beer or glass of wine or Coca-Cola or whatever. In the respect of your time, we'll try to cut it here, right?
Yes. And we will be doing this again. I don't think
Yeah.
we really talked about how often, but soon.
And you'll probably get an email if you're on the K6 newsletter, and if you're not, make sure to join or subscribe to this channel, and you'll be able to see whenever we schedule a new
Oh, we're
live
doing
stream.
that YouTube thing.
Yeah.
Subscribe, leave a comment down below, hit the like button.
Hit the subscribe
All
button
right.
here. In any case, next week you'll be able to catch me on the prisma.io
Yes.
stream, and you'll also be able to see me in Test Guild's yearly automation guild. So if you haven't gotten tickets for that yet, make sure to purchase them right away, because there are a lot of really good speakers there, including Leandro or Senor Performo that we talked about earlier, and Mary Drake, who's a great Cypress speaker. So make sure to join there as well.